Bienvenidos, chicos y chicas. Welcome to, I don't know what this is going to be. The name of this is going to be the Perspectives Podcast with your host, me, Ashley. However, I say I don't know because, by golly, I've started about 9 first episodes by now. That's a little bit of an over-exaggeration, but at least 4. Whether I have them or not, I have no idea, because apparently when you shut your computer down and you don't save stuff, even when you try to recover it, somehow it's lost to the masses. So I'm going to do at some point an excavation of my computer and try to find all of my first episodes and make them number 1, make them number 2, make them number 3. So who knows? But here we are with a podcast episode. I am on a goal? No, that's not right. I am doing something for myself that I've been wanting to do for a while. I've had this surge of energy, this creative energy go through me, and recently opened back up. I honestly think it's always been there, but I've had it dammed up, or it just wasn't, honestly, it wasn't the time. If we're being completely honest, it just wasn't the time. It wasn't the time to start some of the things that I've always wanted to start, or at least that I've always felt like I've wanted to start. You know, it hasn't been like an overwhelming urge to do, I'm starting a business and to get back onto YouTube and to start this podcast, but it's always been a curiosity. And with that curiosity, I kind of just left it on the back burner for a while to simmer. Sometimes even like get that hard, crusty yuck underneath because you left it on for too long. But I'm starting again. And I'm giving myself permission to do that. So, podcast. I don't know. This may be the first episode. This may be the 9th episode. I have no idea. But if at any point it is your first episode, welcome. This is a podcast about, really honestly, I'd say nothing and everything. It kind of came as the love child of my YouTube channel, which I started when I was living in my car. Feel free to go back, check out some episodes. They're a lot of fun. I honestly loved it. I loved making, I'd say, the majority of them. It got to the point, though, if this is the first episode, it got to the point where it was feeling not authentic to make YouTube videos, because it was feeling like that pressure of like, I had to do this, or I had to, I don't know, put something out there or make a name for myself, or really connect with an identity that I was forming. I don't want to say inauthentically. It was who I was at the time, but it was like keeping up a charade in some form, keeping up, you're an actor and now you have, everybody knows you as, I got the word Harry Potter, Daniel Radcliffe. Every time I'm sure somebody sees him, they're just like, Harry Potter, hey, buddy, cast me a spell. And it just kind of felt like I was keeping up this charade of this person. And although that is a part of who I was, and in some ways still very much am, I don't want that to be the identity I hold as a nomad or as a car lifer or whatever. I didn't want that to be my message, I think, is what's coming through, is like there's a part of me that really is an explorer. And I don't just mean of the world. And I don't just mean of the United States. And I don't just mean in my car. And I mean an explorer within myself. And also like an explorer of, I don't want to say like an explorer of other people, even though that could be fun, who knows. But it's like by tapping into myself and my inner authority and working on releasing my energy, releasing my authenticity, finding my authentic voice, is also helping me to relate to other people, because like I'm able now to see other people's struggle and feel the things that they're going through, and whether or not that's the path I start going down, to understand myself, to understand others, to help other people understand themselves. Who knows? Let's see. But that's what this is all about. It's about playing, and it's about releasing and exploring. And this podcast is a means for that. Is one more step in that trajectory. So, thank you for listening, and welcome to this this maybe first episode. So, I wanted to introduce all of that because if it is the first episode, now you kind of know. If it's not, hey, guess what? You had to hear it a couple of times now already, because I feel like the first 9 of my first episodes, I probably have explained to some degree what this is. And either way, it's something we get to play with. It's something that, I get to see, if I put this out there. And judging from me, I love putting on a video, if you will, but never actually watching the picture, unless it's something you have to watch, whatever. Like you have to look at the figures they're putting up or the words or whatever. For the most part, I love just listening. So maybe this is also that opportunity for people who would like to rather listen. Here you go. So this morning I was asking myself, what do I want to put out here today? And it felt like a podcast, and it felt like a channeled message maybe wanted to come through. And so I started writing it down and just seeing. And so I'm going to read it to you, if you don't mind. Not that you really have a choice. But here's what came through for me. Did you ever stop to think about what is you? What is truly you? The things you do or say, or maybe the things that you don't do. Did you ever stop to think about why? How did they get you to this point? Who they are, or how they were even patterned this way? I see clay and the years and years of reforming it into what you see today. I think of wallpaper, of how many times you've put over a new layer, or paint, the same thing, where you're putting on more and more layers to create what you see today. But if you could scrape it all off and start over, what if you could squish the clay into a ball and start again? Blank canvases are the scariest thing for an artist, because it's endless possibilities. Endless. And I thought Starbucks felt intimidating. Well, if you were a blank slate, a blank canvas, what would you paint? No shame. Would it be who you are today? Would it be the life that you have today? Again, no shame. It means nothing about you if you would choose something completely different. And this is actually going off of my writing, but what's coming through now is, what if you could paint a fantasy life? How would that feel in your system? If you could paint this life that is completely outside of yours, how would that feel in your system? So going back to what I was writing, words. What would stick? As in, what parts of your life would you keep and repaint? Maybe what layers of wallpaper would you leave intact because you like the way it looked? Does anyone still use wallpaper? That's a side note. I don't think so. But when you tap deep down inside into the real you, the authentic you, can you feel her? Mine before felt like that scene from Silence of the Lambs, where she was sitting at the bottom of a well, just kind of waiting there for somebody to find her, somebody to connect with her. And from that well, she's out now. I've extricated her now, but still somewhat hidden. I think slowly she's coming out more and more as she feels safe to. Because it's a process. It's a process to reveal yourself. I think there's still shell shock, PTSD from being hidden and forgotten for so long, for all these years. Being brought out into the environment where she was left behind. But slowly I notice her more and more, and it's beautiful. Because as she comes out more, as she feels safe to, she also brings along the stories and the guilt and the shame that had been put upon her that kind of pushed her into that box, into that well in the first place. The stories of you're too loud, you're kind of crazy, you're not going to be taken seriously, you need to work harder, push yourself more, amongst many other things. Stories that really you're not good enough as you are. You're not smart enough. You'll never be respected. And you will always be judged. So you put that version of yourself away only to put out the most curated form, the most curated version of yourself. One that you feel is ironclad. Nobody can judge that. Everybody will love. And everybody can understand. No more play, no more fooling around, no more experimenting, no more pushing yourself outside of your limit, because that puts you outside of your comfort zone and you can't control that. I get the image of a cast, that you make a version of yourself that you want to put out there. And every day you try to fit into that mold perfectly. But really when you cut the cast away, what's underneath is clay that is still soft and pliable. So I guess today it's sitting with this clay and not trying to build something, but giving it permission to just be there, to see what wants to come out and not force anything, to play, craft, create, be fearless in the face of starting again. So that's what I wrote this morning. And I wanted to put that out there just to kind of, feel into this energy of re-becoming. I don't think that's quite a word, but we're going to do it. Re-becoming. And if you've watched any of my YouTube videos recently, I've been talking a lot about this. Because I feel like that's the energy that's kind of moving through. It's this old, heavy, stagnant energy of staying the same, staying put, staying safe in some ways. Safe for other people, convenient for other people. But really getting in touch with this deeper part of you, this more expansive, pliable, can be anything, but yeah, it's the part of yourself that you didn't give permission to. You've been very rigid, very structured, very safe and secure for other people, but maybe it's not quite you. And what is you? I don't know. I think that's this blank slate we're talking about, this lump of clay that could be anything. Then as I said in my channeling, it was like, and that's the scariest part, is you can make anything. And I wrote it as a joke, but that you get intimidated at Starbucks, and I totally do, because there's too many fucking options. So, I'm sorry, I'm just taking a sip of my coffee. Actually, I forgot. I made ginger tea. But what were we talking about? Starbucks. You get intimidated with all of the possibilities that are out there. I find, for me, I'm somebody who I'm starting to decondition a lot of my overwhelm. And I feel like the overwhelm is the endless possibilities, or one story of it is the endless possibilities that are there for whatever you do, for starting this podcast, for example, or my business that I've been wanting to start for like 2 or 3 years. And as I alluded to in the beginning of this podcast, I'm also realizing a component of that is it just wasn't time. It wasn't time to step into my business, step into this podcast, get back into YouTube. Things needed to be learned. Things needed to be uncovered. Ashley needed to be extricated from the well. Somebody needed to drop a line, and that somebody was me. But it just wasn't time. And I think practically none of you know my history, but I've always been somebody, not when I was little, mind you, but in my adult days, I was always somebody that pushed hard, because pushing hard got shit done. I was always somebody that, if I wanted to run a marathon, or if I wanted to run, I'm going to run a marathon. If I'm going to climb, you better believe that I'm going to be climbing a 5'10" or a V5 to just prove that I can do it. And I know for any of you that run or climb, you're probably thinking, well, I mean, maybe some of you are thinking, that's not actually pushing yourself. But when you're 5'2", it is. But you never do things soft. You never do things easy. It's always to the extreme of things, because you have to prove yourself. You have to prove your worth. I started snowboarding, and when I first started, I went like every day, because you better believe I'm getting off of these bunny slopes and, getting through that phase of falling in front of people. And I did. I got good quick. I'm totally proud of that. But on the other hand, it was that type of mindset that really, I'll call it, limited me from expressing myself, because I had a one-track mind, and that all or nothing type of mindset, I think, was also something that, that pushing mindset, that being hard as rocks, really limited me from being this more expressive, creative, flowy force. I don't want to call myself a force, energy that I am now, and continuing to uncover and become. So where's this all going? I don't actually remember. But yeah, I think in some of it is taking a look at who you are today and realizing that all of who you are is just kind of an illusion, kind of a story that you've told yourself that you are. All of these things that you've picked up are just stories and identities to make yourself and others kind of understand it, kind of understand you. With this fear of endless possibilities, you kind of start to cling to ideas of who you are. I am a wife. I am a physician assistant. I am a rock climber. I am a snowboarder. I am. And when those things are taken away from you, or you question whether or not these are valid, that's when the fear starts to set in, because, well, then who am I without these things? So I think I've touched on a bunch of things that I could probably make a whole entire episode on individually. But I think really it's kind of giving yourself permission to let some of these stories go. Let some of these identities go. Become the clay and mold yourself into something new, or play with something new. I think we're all scared because of the fact that having this version of ourselves gives us some structure. Having to start again, if you will, and it's not honestly starting again. There are aspects of you that are authentic, that are already shining through. There's just other parts. Let's just say you could be shinier, once you clean up some of the tarnish that's been placed on you. But I think that's the intimidating part, is feeling like you're starting again. And at least you have this structure right now that you can rely on. So why not just add more things to it instead of removing? But I don't know. I think being able to strip yourself down, if you will, to, I don't want to say a clean slate, but strip away some of it and allow yourself the permission to have it be messy, have it be ugly, have it be unknown, have it be judged, have it be all of these things that maybe you were too scared. But then it'll be authentic, and it doesn't have to look like everybody else's. And I think that's what we need to start giving ourselves permission for. Allowing that shame, that guilt, that story, all of those things to come up and make a fresh work of art, if you will. So with that, I think I'm going to cut this. Let me know what you guys think of this format. I'm going to probably, I have no idea. This is just something that I've wanted to do, and I own a microphone, so why not? I've always wanted to do a podcast, and I've been told many times by people, you should start a podcast. So I want to play with this modality. And plus then you don't have to see my face all the time and the same 3 sweatshirts that I own right now. So it gives me ample opportunity, and it gives me a different format. It gives me, I don't know if you guys can hear, but I can feel a change in my energy when I'm not on camera versus this. And so there's something to play with there, that there's a different level of authenticity, if you will. I'm clearing my throat a lot, so I'm wondering if my throat chakra is being activated in a different way, that there is a different level of authenticity that I can reach here. There's maybe a little bit more vulnerability in the video, and it feels a little scary. And as I've said before in other videos, and maybe even in this one, I can't even remember what we've talked about so far, but it's like when you push yourself, and I was always so good at just pushing myself a little bit too far outside of my comfort zone, maybe well outside of my comfort zone, in the name of growth, in the name of getting better, in the name of success. But maybe YouTube videos are just one step outside of my comfort zone. And as I continue to find my voice, maybe I intersperse it with some of these where I feel more at ease. There's something to it. If I ever find those first episodes, you'll get to hear my reasoning. But when I first when I first recorded my first episode, there was this story that I was trying to make a video. It was like towards the beginning of the year. Right now we're in March, beginning of March, but I recorded my first episode, I don't know, like the 10th of January or something like that, because I was hell-bent, just like, and maybe even earlier, I was hell-bent, just like everybody else, to get out some New Year's resolution things, and one of my resolutions was get back on the YouTube wagon. I started it and I liked it, but, there was something there, a block I need to push myself through, right? I recorded a video, and when I went to go access it, it never saved, and I just cried. And so I was so frustrated that I got out my microphone and I just recorded a podcast, and I started realizing, oh shit, that's what it was I made a video and I was still doing those things, whatever those things are, and I still do them to this day, because like I said, everything's a process. To release things are a process. But when I get on video, it's almost like I feel like I have to perform. I feel like I'm curating this personality still, this cute, bubbly, funny personality, which I am, all those things. I am. But I feel like it's almost amplified. And when I'm behind the microphone, no camera on, I don't know, I feel much more at ease. Like this is who I am. This is more of who I am. So, all of that to say, I'll try to find those first episodes. Maybe this will be my first. And then when I put those other ones in there, I'll make like a little audio file beforehand, like, hey, and this one was recorded 3 months ago. And so when you hear things that, whatever, I'll make a disclaimer. But yeah, there's something there. Play around. You can create well within the hell's this thing called? Your safety zone, your comfort zone, your little nido, your little nest. You can create and feel safe and feel comfortable and connect with that part again. Like, what does it look like to create within your comfort zone too? It's, I don't know, like what feels good and feels doable. It's something I think wanted to come up about all of that, but I think I'll leave that for another episode. So with that, thank you guys so much for listening to what is likely going to be my first episode of the Perspectives podcast. I'm Ashley, and yeah, stay tuned for the next episode. Next episode and my next videos on YouTube. And thanks again, guys, and I'll talk to you later.